for this, so that people that haven't been able to attend tonight will be able to listen to it. And we'd like to thank our panelists, Michelle, Padraig and Fiola. You're going to hear from them, all people from different sides of cycling sport, but equally all that have dabbled at one stage in adventure racing of some sort. So hopefully we'll get a lot of knowledge about cycling, but also a little bit about how cycling and adventure racing interact. So we're going to kick off with Fiola. She's based down in Clorgan. She had spent some time in recent years over in Switzerland, doing sort of semi-pro road biking and high-level triathlon. Before that, she was doing a lot of team adventure racing with some of the top guys here in Ireland and internationally. And before that, she spent quite a few years as an elite rower, full-time carded athlete, I believe. Is that right, Fiola?
Yeah,
8 times Irish champion. I'll leave it to you to explain the story. So
yeah. Hi everyone.
Not hard to fit up, but great to have you.
Yeah, it's a bit of a roundabout story, but yeah, lovely to be here, and pretty honoured to be asked to be on the panel tonight. So yeah, as Paul said, my background is in elite sports rowing. I was a lightweight rower, went to America on scholarship, did my university stint over there, and then went full-time until about 2004 or 5. We missed Olympic qualification by very little in the lightweight double. I was with Sinead Jennings. And then after that, I pretty much took a break from competitive sports. And then I lived in Peru for 3 or 4 years. And then when I came back to Europe, I was running, and then I started mountain biking in 2008. And I guess I was still pretty strong from rowing, and I was doing a bit of surfing and stuff like that. And I was working on an adventure race down in Kerry, and started like getting friendly with some of the lads that were adventure racing here, and went out training with them. And that's how it all started. So I just, from one day to the next, I was up running Carrauntoohil and doing a good bit of mountain biking, thrown completely in at the deep end. I was towed around like the beast of Ballyhowrah and couldn't believe how hard it was. But little by little then I started getting used to it, and the fitness levels, got pretty good. And then I left to Switzerland. It was the recession in Ireland, 2008. There wasn't much work here. So I went over there, and I ended up staying there for 8 years. And during that time, I did a lot of, I carried on with the adventure racing internationally, but the scene in the German part of Switzerland isn't very strong for adventure racing. There's a bit more in the French speaking part of Switzerland. So I did a lot of pretty tough, I'd say alpine triathlons. So you'd have anything from like, a swim would be like 3 kilometers, and then you might have a road bike ride like 120, but then you'd have to run up to 2,000 or 3,000 meter Alp, or there'd be a mountain bike involved as well. So I spent my time basically beasting myself on some of those races. And then I ditched all of the multi-sport stuff, and I decided I was going to concentrate completely on cycling. So I was doing mountain bike marathons, and I was licensed, and I was also racing for a Swiss domestic team. And I did a bit of track racing as well. So for the past, I would say, I suppose 6 years, I went from competitive cycling then to kind of just toning it down a bit. I got offered a pro contract at one stage, but I turned it down because I just didn't want to take things so seriously anymore. I'm 41 now, and at that point I was 36, and I just thought, look, let's just have fun. And since then I've been doing a lot of bike packing and just exploring on the bike, different types of cycling, mountain bike, gravel cycling, and road cycling. And yeah, that's where I'm at now. I had a baby in December on Christmas Eve. So I've been back on the bike since, I suppose, a month after I had the baby, and I started back cycling first, and now I'm doing a bit of running, and everything is great. The only problem is trying to find the time to go out. But yeah, life is different stages, and I'm in that stage right now. So hopefully little by little over the next year, I'll get my fitness back up, and who knows, maybe next year I'll do some races again.
Okay. Super. Just, I suppose, from so a lot of people wouldn't know the scene with the elite rowers. I know I raced with one of them, Garrod Towie, better known as Gags, who was, I think, at 3 different Olympics, 2000, 2004, 2008. But like, okay, while you didn't reach the Olympics, you were still training at the same level as guys like him, from what I understand. Can you maybe give a feel of, you know, what it was like to go from that to then having to work for a living and basically racing for essentially fun and self-funded?
Yeah. So when I went like full time at rowing, I just come back from America. Well, I was racing for the Irish team during the summers, and then I do the NCAA stuff when I was in the States. And then the Irish, squad were very keen to put a lightweight double forward for the Olympics, and based on your ranking in the world. Like, so when I raced the first, when I was racing World Cups, we were always consistently in the top 6. So that's where the funding would come from. And then your life is just dedicated to rowing. I mean, there's nothing else. Like, even 1 month off in the year, that was August, and you went out, you got drunk on 2 pints, and then it was great crack, and then you were back to training again in September. So it was completely all in, like, and especially if you're a lightweight as well, it's the added stress or pressure of having to make weight every season was incredible. And then when I stopped rowing, it was like nothing I can describe. Like, you basically lose your identity, because until then I was always like Fiola the rower. And then when I stopped, it was like, who am I? Like, how do I redefine myself? A lot of people, I think, actually Garrod is working on, he's got a company where he helps athletes make the transition from pro to a normal life, because there's a very high rate of ex-pro athletes turning to like drugs, drink, like alcohol abuse, suicide is high, and like higher crime rate among ex-pro athletes. I didn't go down that road, I'd like to point out, but I kind of just left Ireland because I didn't want to know anything to do with rowing. I was like so disappointed and so hurt by I suppose the way my career ended. I just turned my back on it completely, and I probably needed to do that to start again. So I actually went to Spain, and I became a teacher, and I had a great time in Barcelona for a year, and then I went off to Peru. So I had a good break, and I think it gave me the time to sort of, it's very cliche, but to find myself. And ironically, I ended up going back to sports, but I think the diversification, like, I suppose there's so much that sport can offer you, especially multi-sport, where you get to do different things and go different places, and it's exciting to explore, and you get to train with other people. That for me was amazing. I mean, I got to know Ireland in 2008 by doing all the races here. Like no one ever does normally. Like, who do you know is going to force himself off the back of a mountain that's covered in bog at 2 o'clock in the morning or at any time of the day? So I think that journey was incredibly cool, and I feel very fortunate to have been offered sort of the chance in life to come back from a pro career and find joy and sort of a love for sport again, because a lot of people don't,
Yeah. No, I certainly have got that from talking to Gags, that there's so many people that, there's such a void left. And I think for ordinary people like me, who've come from the background of sort of, college, beer, a few bob in your pocket, and then sort of find sport, be it in my case mountain running, then leading into adventure racing. I know that Padraig's going to talk about, he's been cycling all the time for a long time, but you came from a different angle. And the adventure racing, okay, the multi-sport, then how did that feed into the cycling, which you seem to have then got, like, okay, you didn't take up the pro contract, but you got offered one, so you're clearly operating at a pretty serious level there. Were you working over there presumably at the time as well?
Yeah, like, that's the thing. I was working for BMC, a bike brand, and it really, the time I was offered the pro contract, I was at a crossroads a little bit in my career where I was being put under a lot of pressure with work, and I had the choice to sort of advance in my career or to go down the road of being the pro athlete again. So I think, like, with the multi-sport racing, I mean, I think you're always going to be strong in one discipline, and for me, I felt like I did a lot of the races, and I didn't really identify myself as a triathlete. I don't particularly like the scene, I think, because I always liked a bit more adventure. And I found that the formats of triathlons were too standard, like, and even those races that exist, if you've done it once, you know what it's like, and doesn't matter if if you podium, it's great. But I never felt like going back year after year and doing the same races. I always wanted to see something new. And then with cycling, you can go to so many different places, and training is so much fun. And I found that like training was like very enjoyable. So we were just going out and riding really big distances on the weekends as a group of friends in the Alps. That was my training really. Like, I mean, obviously I was with some pretty fast guys. Then during the week, a lot of the time at the weekends, I had a very strong group of friends, and we would just make up a plan and we'd go off if there wasn't a race on or something. And so I suppose that for me was like cycling just as a mono discipline was satisfying my sort of drive to see new places and have a bit of adventure as well, in the mountains. So it was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Susan, I think, does Susan have a couple of the photos there? Just, I think there's a couple of photos, picture tells 1,000 word type thing. Susan, if you could, can you share a few of those photos? Just flick through them. Oh, you're going backwards. Oh yes, there we go. Looking very young and
I know, yeah, it
determined.
looks so different.
Determined.
That first
Okay.
photo was from the World Under 23 World Championships in Copenhagen in 2001, I think. And I had a very unlucky day there. I was the fastest person going into the finals, but the wind wasn't in my favor. And they actually changed the order of the boats from that race on because people on the inside lanes were getting shelter from trees. I was gutted. They were going to rerun the race, but they didn't. And I ended up coming fourth. So, but it was my first, I suppose, real success on an international level. And I was skinny.
Well, you were lightweight, but it's funny. I was just I don't know whether, I presume you're watching the boat race there recently.
Yeah.
Young Caoimhe Dempsey, who's actually, do you know Caoimhe's connection with adventure racing?
No.
She's Roisin MacDonald's daughter.
Oh, go on. Wow.
Yeah. So Roisin, Fiola would know from adventure racing. She was part of a team actually in the 2007 World Champs, and her daughter was on the winning Cambridge team. But just even from watching that, where they were talking about the crosswind and how it would protect one boat and not the other and whatever else, it's a tremendously technical sport, isn't it?
Yeah, especially in a crew and an 8 when it's so big, you get a lot of shelter from a boat on an inside lane. And in this, like in the single though, it was pretty bad what happened in that race. Like, I mean, I was actually well up on all the other boats until 600 meters. The races are 2,000 meters, and then the trees disappeared. Or no, the trees appeared. Sorry, and then I got all the crews on my side, of course, got all of the brunt of the wind, and people ended. The race order was inside crew first, and then second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Yeah.
Anyway, we want to just flick on there maybe.
Next slide. Sorry.
So,
yeah, this was the team that did the Swiss Epic. Yeah, that was oh my God, it was an incredibly hard race, adventure race in Switzerland. I think the total altitude or elevation gain in the whole event was something like 15,000 meters combined. So we made it, I think, until the second or third day, and we actually made a mistake. It was horrible. We misread the road book, and we missed a cutoff to the top of a ridge, and we would have made it only we slept at the bottom of the mountain. And we got up there and we'd no clue that we weren't going to make the cutoff, and we were absolutely gutted. Like, but even
the ups and downs of adventure racing.
I know, it was like, you're just so wrecked, and we just didn't read it properly, and that was it then.
Super. But then you went on the next slide there. That's Abu
Dhabi.
That's the fun. That was the fun race, the 6-day race. I was there myself with another Irish team.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Fabulous race. Just basically Abu Dhabi. The Abu Dhabi Tourism Authority paid for, I think it was about 30 international teams to go out and race, and gave prize money pretty much to everybody in the audience. It was pretty good.
Yeah, and they like the nights were amazing too because you get to sleep most of the nights, and they had like the food was good, and it was a pretty cool race. Yeah, like I actually really enjoyed that. I think if I were to go back and do like a longer event, I'd like it like that.
Yeah, the a la carte, flipping 5-star experience. Keep going there, Susan, with
Next.
the things.
Oh
That's the
yeah.
other side. 1 star.
This is in Ecuador. Oh my God, I raced with a Danish team, and we it was terrific. We were about 30-40 hours into the race, and we had slept until then. And our captain, who was also the navigator, started to suffer really, really badly from altitude sickness. And so we had to stop, but it was like there was nowhere to stop. We were in a valley, and the valley floor was complete like mud knees. So we had to go up the side of the hill, which was just this like grass, and it was pouring rain. And we couldn't go forwards, we couldn't go back. We ended up pressing the button, and they said they couldn't come to us and help us for like 10 hours. So we ended up like walking out of the valley ourselves. We couldn't go up anymore because he was like projectile puking. He was so sick, and his pupils were like really small. He had low blood pressure and everything. So we had to pull the plug on that race as well. But I'll never forget it. Yeah, one of the things about adventure racing are these types of experiences where it's tough.
Look down there, Susan. I think there's a slightly happier photo. There you go.
Yeah, this was
That's Killarney.
Killarney. This was just me coming back after I think Switzerland. I'd moved back home again, back to Ireland, and I thought I was super unfit, but I wasn't too bad actually. I was pretty strong on the bike, and then had a nice run, and just a good memory of a race that I did at home.
One of the solo races, wasn't it? 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, and this is Karen
Tool, I'd say.
Oh my God, you can see my face. I'm absolutely in bits. My average heart rate on this race was 170. That's what, like 2 hours. It was an hour and 40 or 50 or something.
I was going to say less from you, because I think you won that race or something, didn't you?
Yeah, okay, second.
Second.
Yeah, we got lost. It's my home ground, and I don't know how like I ended up going a bit off course, but pain cave completely, absolutely at the limit. Going downhill. But it's nice when you suffer that much, but you also have a good ranking. So
and is there I don't know, is that the last one? Oh no, we're into
this was just a picture from the track racing in Switzerland. God, that was I actually really enjoyed track racing. It's so you have to use your instincts a lot because everything's happening so fast. So you really rely on just gut, and these were some Venezuelan girls that were racing, some international racing. Next, then some fun cyclocross style event in Switzerland as well. Next, I think is the last one. Podium, who cares? I should remove those. And this is what I do mostly nowadays. What I did before I had a baby, I would go on adventures to different places. So this is from, I'd say, the Faroe Islands. A couple of years ago.
I thought it looked like Ireland, like down the west.
I know. It's very like Ireland, actually. So I've done a good bit of bikepacking trips, camping out and stuff, and it's just a really great way to kind of get around, but like a light bikepacking, so not with panniers and stuff. So like I said, there's loads of different ways to enjoy cycling, and I'm happy to answer any questions or whatever.
So if you could throw any questions you have there into the Zoom chat at the bottom, and then we'll come to those afterwards. Hopefully Fiola doesn't get dragged off by her daughter in need. But thanks, Fiola. That was brilliant, that insight. We're going to go on now to Mr. Padraig Marrey, the flying postman from Westport. Padraig's, I've known Padraig sort of from adventure racing world from, I suppose, late noughties. He started, did the very first Gale Force 6 back in 2006, and then had an ambition for several years to win his local race, which he managed to do in 2010. But before that, he has a huge career and degree of success in road cycling, basically road racing. And the one big impressive stat I see in his whole CV is this mizzen to Fairhead, 34 point something kilometer an hour average, 17 hours something, epic, 600 odd K. So I'll let Padraig tell you a bit about his cycling career and his adventure racing fun along the way. Padraig.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for inviting me. I kind of been away from the adventure race scene for a few years. I suppose mainly due to back injuries, but prior to all that, I suppose like I always grew up in cycling, but I always grew up as well climbing a lot of hills and slobbering around with I suppose traveling down the road less traveled. Like we were doing mountain biking back in the 90s when no one was doing mountain biking, but it wasn't with any specific equipment. It was just old style President mountain bikes and away we went. And I suppose the road racing scene, it's kind of like a bubble. If you're in the road racing scene, you go, you train through the winter, you get fitter, you do pre-race stuff all say spring, and then you race kind of from March right through to September. And it's kind of a bubble. You just go into it, come out of it, go into it, come out of it. And I was stuck in that bubble for 20 years. I found it hard to get out of it. And actually, I only came across adventure racing kind of by luck, really. A few friends of mine were they were dabbling in running, a bit of kayaking and whatever, and then the Gale Force. It was kind of Gale Force 72. There was kind of a few versions of the Gale Force, but it was a full Gale Force weekend, and we just said we'd enter for the crack. And a friend of mine, Dave Sands, says, "Would you buddy up with him?" So I done nothing on the week, bar go out on the Monday evening before the Gale Force the previous Saturday, and tried to run up with him. He left me for dust, completely ran away. So we kind of saved when we came back down. I said, what else is involved in this? So he kind of explained the whole crack and saying, 14K run, kayak across Killary, another 4 or 5K run, another biking across the Sheffries to the back of the Reek, up and down Crowpatrick. Then back that time you used to come back in over Scalp, a real rough trail, back into Westward, and then you run back in toward. Some of them finished at Westward House, some of them finished at the back of the leisure park, but at that time, or finished down the Quay, but that time we finished, the first one I did finished in Westward House. And it was done in waves, and we were all over the shop. I don't know where it was, so you could dib in and dib out at the time. And sure, of course, we never looked at the rules or nothing. You just keep following the rest of them. So I won't say I wasn't competitive, but I didn't know where I was or who I was racing against or whatever. And it was only afterwards we realized where we came. We had no idea. And I mean, even when we crossed over the line, we still didn't know. It was when your timing was docked out and your wave was sorted that I realized. But it was from then on, I think I met you. That would have been my first time coming across you guys, yourself and Peter, having the crack at you. And I suppose from literally doing no training to getting, say, in the top, I think it was 4th the first year. I suppose that gave me a grow. Or no, actually, sorry, it was 3rd the first year. Or I think it was 3rd the first year. Don't even know what it was. But I suppose that gave me a grow for adventure racing. I always kind of loved the uniqueness of the adventure race. It's different courses, different terrain, different hills. Sometimes the bike course wasn't always. I always preferred the rougher bike courses. So if I could bring a road bike down the most horrendous path, that suited me down to the ground. It mightn't suit you guys, but it used to suit me. And even though I wouldn't have practiced much in that, I had good enough skills for it. And I also paid the price for that. I think I punctured twice in 2 Gale Forces while in the lead, which was not nice either. And but that's the risk you take. It's all part of the fun. I suppose the other side was like one thing I've learned. I suppose people ask about training, like how did you cross over from all the time road racing to adventure racing? I never stopped. I go from road racing or mountain bike racing to adventure racing. Literally no transition, just one straight to the other. And I did no running. Literally, I might go out on a run on a Wednesday for 5K and then do the adventure race at the Saturday or Sunday. That's all I used to do. Or else I'd go out and I'd do Crowpatrick. Crowpatrick was my favourite training ground. So I used to cycle out the back way up by the rescue huts. It's a big long climb all the way out. I won't say run up and down. You go up and I was actually always good at coming down for some unknown reason. Come down as hard as I could, back in on the bike, and that was it. That was my training. And I suppose I remember having the crack with you guys and saying that to you, and you were kind of flabbergasted that I didn't know running, no hill, proper hill running. That's all we used to do. And I never took adventure racing properly serious until 2011. You put on your the Adventure Race Ireland series, and I said I had to cut it in 2010, but I missed. I think I only did 5 of the races, and you needed to do. You had to do a certain quota, and I missed out on a few, and I was for whatever reasons. But 2011, I had a good cut of that, and I think that year, all right, I was actually flying, going really, really well, until we came along and we decided to do something daft. As in climb Croagh 12 times in could we climb Croagh 12 times in 24 hours. So we recruited a load of bodies for that. There was all sorts of training days. Now that year actually helped me with a lot of adventure racing. So, but yeah, that was a memorable day back in July 1st and the morning of, started July 1st and finished in July 2nd. Yeah, 24 hours. We started at 6 o'clock in the evening. But that was a memorable day. You were on that, Paul. And
guest of honor from Carlo.
Guest of honor from Carlo, yeah. Just funny, like there was, I say in the beginning, 40 of us started off with that, and we had various training days and various time schedules to meet. But the first one was 3 climbs. We had to do that in 4 hours. That was up and down, and that was down to the car park, not to the statue. And I suppose looking back, I remember when we had 11 climbs done, we were all really on song. We'd all the tick points done, like we'd done 3 climbs in 4 hours, and then we did 6 climbs, and then we had 8 climbs. They were all the tick boxes that we did. And looking back, and like I know we set a world record at the time, and that still holds from what I believe, for the most amount of meters ascended and descended in one day in a 24-hour period. But you look back at it, it was fairly full on. I know from talking to you, I say if we pushed on that particular day, we probably could have got 14 climbs. I often wonder what.
I'd still say you would have got 14. I think few of us might have got 13, but I think you were the strongest. But listen, it was a brilliant day. It was a great achievement. It was 11 people in total got across the line for the 12 for this world record, which is great.
Yeah, it was,
you were saying that helped you then for the adventure racing.
It helped me for the adventure racing, with the exception of Gale Force. Gale Force probably for the 6 weeks afterwards, I think I was a bit spent. I found I was just dead, and on Gale Force the next year, I ended up 3rd, and close enough to Peter O'Farrell. He was the main man for Gale Force every year. He just seemed to strike it right. But Peter O'Farrell and Tom O'Dowd, I was with Tom at the end, and Peter was just barely ahead of us. But I just didn't have the spark. I didn't have that punch. I really lacked it on the bike. So that's one thing I learned, that if you do a lot of running or do a lot of hill work, your bike really suffers. And I remember my road racing year that year, I had a brutal road racing year. So they don't always cross over for whatever reason. But I suppose the other big highlight was that Mizzen to Malin. And again, that was done a bit on a whim. We done a group record, or not a group record. A group wanted to cycle from Mizzenhead to Malinhead, and to do it as fast as they thought they could do it without kind of leaving anyone behind. So they invited a few heads, as in like Philip Cassidy, Tommy Evans, and myself, to come along and help guide it and help keep everybody together. But I just found at the end of it, I didn't find it hard. I just said, this isn't hard, and everybody seemed to be really suffering. So I probably would have been more suited. Looking back over what I did in cycling, I probably should have stuck more to long stuff, long audits or long maybe multi-day events that went on for lots of hours.
Because what do 12 Rás Tailteann, as it was called back in the day, like, which is 6-7 day, sometimes 8 day around Ireland,
Yeah, they were
four
actually.
to 6 hours a day, isn't it?
No, the first 5 Ross I did were 9 days, and it averaged. The last day was an easy day. That was only a kind of a sprint around the Phoenix Park or a sprint around O'Connell Street, but the average around 4 to 4, maybe 5 hours a stage. And again, I was doing that, just doing it because it was the premier event. Like if you were able to do a Ross, we always
proper cyclist. Yeah, no, you're a proper
cyclist.
cyclist. I think
You're a
anyone.
man of the Ross. That was the big accolade. And like I did a Ross in the 90s, the 90s, and the 2010s, which is 3 decades, which is kind of a long span.
Yeah.
And I enjoy, and I'll have to admit, like I don't enjoy racing. I enjoy the feeling after the race is over. I actually the racing itself, between the anxiety of trying to get a result or get a performance, or the effort. I always found everything was such an effort. Like it was always hard. Be it adventure racing, running marathons, everything seemed to be hard. I don't know. That's just maybe I'm soft, but I always found everything was hard.
Yeah, but
I always enjoyed the feeling afterwards.
What I remember about you though is like you were, I would say you were a total racer. You know, you put the race head on, and it's a bit like being able to stick your head down in your tri bars for 18 hours and heading from one end of the country to the other. You know, certain people, and I'd be definitely one of them, I can't do that. I have to have a bit of sociability or something like that. I cannot focus on something. So like, is it something, any tips for people out there that are finding it a struggle on the bike? You know, what was it? Because, you know, you're not a natural cyclist build. You're not, like, you're more a Sam Bennett build than a Dan Martin skinny for climbing. Like that's the reality. Even, you know, maybe that's why you're good descending off the reef, because you've gravity, which you're a big broad guy. Like,
I let you into a tip. Sam Bennett is about 20 kgs lighter than I am.
He looks huge on the bike.
He's tiny. Sam Bennett is tiny. I say Sam Bennett isn't even 70 kilos.
Wow.
Like I raced most of my adventure race in 85, 86 kilos.
Well, that's what I remember. Weight. Yeah. No, compared to Peter, who'd be racing at 70 kilos odd, you know.
Yeah, I always found the weight thing. I like my food now. I just like my food.
But like, yeah, Fiola, you made mention of a Fiola, you know, your lightweight rower, it's all about making your weight. I don't know what it was it 65 kilos maybe for lightweight with women?
No, 57 in the Olympic class, and then 59 in the single. And it was the same because on the bike I was climber. Well, I was a bit of a jack of all trades, but I was a good climber, so weight was really important there as well. So you're just always skinny, and you're always like, you know that it's directly related as well. You're going to climb faster if you're lighter. So
so how did you overcome that part? Like, you were able to climb as well as fast on the flat, weren't you?
How was it? I'd be very strategic, even in adventure racing. Like, even if the ones that say anywhere around the country, Kerry, Dublin, whatever, I'd always go up the night before. I'd recce everything. That'd be just me. I'd look at the transitions in, transitions out. I would be very methodical in my head. I mightn't be writing any notes down. He said, "This fella's he's not paying heed." But I was taking it all in mentally. I was very good that way in my head. Needed to know what I looked at. Kind of worked out how long the race would take. So that was my food strategy, and I used to nearly always get it fairly right. As regards training, again, like if there's 30k biking, you looked at the terrain, how much meters of climbing, what kind of terrain is it? Is it technical? Is it just flat? Is there a lot of downhill? And looking who you're like, I'd be all the time looking at my competitors, and I try and have my research done on whoever was there. So I know the likes of you guys, and so I know, like, technically, if there was a really bad descent, I was going to attack you there. Or if there was a really good hill in it, I'd attack you there. I wouldn't bring you to the line. The odd time you used to hang on for dear death, but then that was part
cyclist, you know. But again, I totally get that. You race to your strengths and weaknesses, and you know, you try and minimize your
like running would have been my weakness, but because being mainly I didn't train in that area, and I was okay going uphill and okay going down. It was the more flatter runs that got me. But then I did a marathon. My first marathon, I think it was 2010. And the longest run I had done pre the marathon, up until I met a guy, was about 7 or 8 miles. And I said, I want to run the marathon. And I booked in for it. He said, what training have you done? I said, well, I've run 7 or 8 miles, a couple of them. He says, oh, right. He said, well, what time do you think you can do the marathon? I said, well, to be honest, I said, I don't want to do the marathon. I said, if I can't break 3 hours. He said, what time do you need to do the marathon in? To work out those times. So I was working off miles, and he says, so I worked it out. So 6:45 a mile or 4:12 a kilometre. So he sent me down to we have a race course in Ballinrobe. It's exactly a mile, 1 mile of tarmac around the race course. And he says, see, can you bang out 10 of them with that at that pace? So I ran down, did a 2K warm up, went down, did 10 laps, and each of them was always under, I think 6:42 and 6:41. I did a few 6:38s. Come back, I just rang him up. Said, come here, I banged out 10 of those miles. It says at 6:45, under 6:45 pace. I said, you've been grand. That was my training up to the marathon. And in fairness, I stayed with the 3-hour marker all the way. Came up, went up beside him with a couple of miles to go, and says, what's going to happen here? Do you sprint for the line, or what's going on? He said, man, this is the pace. He says, we're not going to go above this. He said, you comfortable? I said, yeah. He said, we shouldn't be here. Go off up the roads. I went up the roads, and that was it. Yeah. That was the way. That was the look I used to take with running. And
yeah, well, as you say yourself, you didn't train, but you had such a back catalogue of ability. But just on an adventure racing related question, you never indulged in the team stuff, not yet, anyway. Was that? I know you said your back started to affect you.
Yeah, I don't know why. Was he asked? I think you asked me a few times to do the beast. I suppose at the time I was road racing. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a proper adventure racer. In my head, that's what I felt. I couldn't navigate, and I always felt I won't say I'd be a control freak, but I would like to know where I'm going and what I'm doing. Is this the best possible strategy? And if you go to those races, you won't know. If you haven't done them before, you won't know. And I suppose the only way you're going to find out is do them. And if I'm going to invest 3 days in an event, no disrespect to my competitors or to the rest of the team, I want to make sure that they're at the very, very best. And if there's a lot of cycling in it, and I'm going to be hanging around, I just felt, just for me, I said, this could be a head melt for me.
Frustrating.
So that's probably why. And cycling, is an individual sport. We had no teams in cycling. And at amateur level in Ireland, it's mano a mano, Joe. You race for yourself. That's just the way it was.
Is there not you race for your teammates?
You're watching too much of the Tour de France and the pro scene in amateur racing. Not unless you're part of the real big clubs, but at club level, racing in the Irish amateur scene, it's mano a mano. Like there was only one other, or maybe massive, maybe 2 others that were able to race at, say, A1 level in our club. So, if they were there at the very end, then you could play team tactics. But more often than not, you're on your own.
You're hanging on. Yeah, it's interesting the point you make about cycling and the individuality and the frustration that you would potentially, and I'd say having been on lots of, let's say, team events, I can see that frustration in certain people that are very strong at one discipline, at other people that aren't as good. But yet, I suppose, for the people listening in who might be thinking of the change from the one-day adventure races onto the team stuff, I think the willingness to operate as a team and to box your frustrations, and if you're stronger on the bike, then you get a bungee cord out your back, and whoever's the weakest on the team, if you come to a hill, that's the way you keep everybody going. It's a different psychology for sure on the team.
It would definitely be. I suppose back in the early noughts, I got involved in coaching football teams, and that gave me an awful distaste for team sports. And when I was younger, I got a bad distaste for team sports. I'm not saying that it's going to be like that for all, but I just remember going back. I just said, these guys, they don't care. They want everything done for them. I'm about football now, and
But that's Mayo football, and we know where that's got them.
yeah, but you know yourself. It's a different scene, and it's a different mentality. Like you Finola probably knew it in rowing. It's a different mentality between, say, an individual and a team boat. Your personality will have a lot to play with. And my personality, or I won't say my whole attitude towards racing has changed. Like I'm gone into exploring and slobbering around, even bike hiking, as in throw the bike on the back, hop over a few hills, find a path, see where that path join up, have a look at a map, and just that's my big gig at the moment, any national park or any, like literally anywhere west, I've kind of
explored. Yeah. Well, you're organising some events there through your race face company, and you were telling us about you have a gravel enduro or something coming up during the summer. I know gravel seems to be the new buzzword. Like 29ers are gone out into the back.
We have a gravel grinder. Basically, we have two distances: the 60 kilometers and 80 kilometers, or 100 kilometers down in, say, the national park there, the Ballycroy National Park. So we got special dispensation to allow an event in there. So that's on in September.
Brilliant.
And we're making a full weekend out. We have another thing going up. Your famous climb, the Schelp. We actually have to climb it from the steep side, not go down it. And we have an event there that goes up the Schelp and into the old wee bogs. Basically, it's at the back of Patrick and using the heritage trails that are there.
Brilliant.
And we're also have ultras and all that going on.
That'd be great. Like I know.
But that's I see everybody. Pardon?
Yeah, there's a lot of events I think going to necessarily be in September, but something like that for all the people that have got their gravel bikes would be something great to look forward to.
Yeah, it's I was out today on the road, and we're very lucky where we live. It's very quiet. Like even all the rural roads are quite quiet. But we came onto the Lewisburg Westport Road there today on the way in, and like we were saying, there was only two of us, but we're single file, and like traffic is getting busy. They have no tolerance at all now for cyclists on the road. And especially like around Westport, there's quite a few greenways, and there is a greenway from Murraskin, and you're expected to ride on that. And even though it's full of chip-ins and on a road bike, it's so easy puncture, the motorists just feel that you shouldn't be out on the road. And that's why I feel that gravel biking, I really feel that adventure racing is going to be huge in the next couple of years. People have, there's trails and tracks that I do down here that no one would ever be on, and they're absolutely walked and hiked to death. People are finding they want to be outdoors, they want to try out stuff, and I think if there's events put on around in whatever area you're from, I can just see them being huge. No, it's like everything. It'll have to be baby steps, not go too long, not go too mad. But I just think it's a very it'd be an exciting time for adventure racing going forward. That's my personal opinion. Be it you bring in a bit of the gravel. That's the new buzz.
Brilliant. No, it'll be good times once we get back racing. Which
that's the main thing.
Anyway, I'm just wary that Fiola might have to scoot off there at 8 o'clock. So if anybody has any questions, please just throw them in the chat, and then we'll hit them later on. Fiola. Actually, I'll mention it now, Fiola, if you don't mind. About Fiola actually works for Komoot, what's it? It's basically like a
route planning and navigation app.
Yeah. So Fiola's kindly made an offer for a year's worth of offline maps for everybody. I think it's a €30 voucher worth or something like that. So that Susan is going to send around there during the week. So thanks very much, Fiola, for that. You can tell everybody about it in the email, maybe, or something like that. But we're going to move on to Michelle, our enduro expert. So if anyone doesn't know anything about enduro, to my mind, it's a mix of downhill and cross-country mountain biking. But there's more to Michelle's story than that, like, because she's come from sort of team sport background, a relatively late convert to biking. And I think one of her photos we'll say that, and from team sports. So Michelle, if you want to just
Thanks, Paul. This is a bit like being on a start line, waiting to go. I'm not going to adrenaline, so that's what it's felt like the last few.
You're in the elite wave, you see. You're being kept back to the end.
I'm just gonna. This is going to show you the teacher in me. I'm just going to share my screen here because I have a little PowerPoint to stop myself from waffling and talking too much rubbish. So I'm not sure if you can see this or not.
Yeah, we can see that. It's fine. If you just want to maximize that.
Okay, let's see if this works now. So first of all, hi everyone. Thanks for inviting me on, Paul. Basically, I do a lot of enduro mountain biking. So I started in 2012. You can see you see the photos there, okay, can you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
So I started in 2012, and I pretty much threw myself straight into racing from the get-go, really. And from 2012 all the way to 2018, I was racing in the Enduro World. Well, I started in the Enduro World Series around 2015. So I had no background in mountain biking whatsoever. I had come from team sports. You can see I played a lot of basketball, played Division 1 basketball, played over in London. I trained over there as a PE teacher. As you can see there, I played for London GAA team as well, and I would have played for QPR football team. So, I mean, mountain biking to me was just, it wasn't even in my thought process at all. So when I moved back home I was in Dubai for a little while, I moved back home and moved to Galway, and I decided to try something different. So I wanted to kind of move away from team sports and, do something completely different, but still be, I suppose, kind of competitive. So I tried some triathlons, a bit like you, Fiola. I just felt it was quite rigid and too structured for me. Tried a few adventure races. So in 2010, I think it was either 10 or 11, I did the Rough Diamond, and I did a half marathon mountain race as well in Galway. And I tried Gale Force West as well. So I had dabbled, I suppose, in it without a lot of training. So I suppose my fitness from sport helped me through that. But I still wasn't really, I suppose, totally sold. Even though I loved the adventure racing, I still was just looking for something maybe a little bit different. So then I was working with a guy from Connemara MTB, Mountain Bike Club, lived in Galway, and he introduced me to the club, to the guys, and they invited me out on a spin to the Burn. So we basically, my first ever proper mountain bike experience was across the Burn, and did some fun trails down through this field, and I just loved it. It was almost that moment where I thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. So 2 months later, that would have been 2012, the first ever Gravity Enduro series run by biking.ie was in Jouse Woods in Wicklow, and I decided to give that a go. All the guys were going. I didn't know what to expect at all. I had a short travel, I think it was 100 mil travel race, cross-country bike, a giant XTC, and small little narrow tires. And I basically was in Jouse Woods, if anyone knows it, it's quite technical. It was a fairly wet weekend. So I was kind of thrown in the deep end with the whole thing, but I absolutely loved it. And from that summer on, I ended up racing every round of the series in the sports category. So there was 2 categories. There was elite women, and then there was sports. And I won the whole series that summer in the sport category. So that was, I felt this is something I really want to do. And I was really, really inspired by the girls in the pro category. So that the following year, you can see there, I entered into the Red Bull Fox Hunt. But just that year as well, I was really lucky with a mountain bike shop in Galway, in Moycullen. Gary Davern, he kind of took me under his wing a bit, and he gave me kind of a shop deal. So I was with a Kona grassroots team. So I got myself a decent bike. Prior to that, he had lent me a decent mountain bike for that first season of racing. So 2013, I just kind of jumped right into it. I entered the Red Bull Fox Hunt and I won it that year. So that, I don't know if anyone has ever heard of it. It's up in Northern Ireland. It's a mass downhill race. There's usually about maybe 10 to 12 women. The rest are all lads. Everybody races together. I don't know if I have the picture there of it. No, I don't.
It's a melee down the mountain chasing a pro rider, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think that you're
a pro rider chasing everyone.
Pro rider chasing everyone. So everybody starts on the horn, and we had G. Atherton. He's a professional UK downhill racer. He had to chase everybody, and he tries to beat all the riders. And yeah, so pretty much it's just carnage. It was just, 20 minutes of sheer craziness, but I loved it. So I kind of discovered about myself that I seem to love speed and just this adrenaline rush, but I definitely wasn't an adrenaline junkie. I just happened to really love mountain biking and I suppose going fast. And then that year we did the Racing 795, which is, I know they do a lot of adventure races as well. So that was a fun race to do. It was a bit different. It was more like a cross country race. So I really had got the bug that year. And I also then decided to go over to Malaga for a week to get some biking in with a company called Sierra Cycling. He ended up putting me in a room, or a house share, I should say, with some Swedish downhill guys who just were brilliant. They took me downhill biking, gave me some tips, and yeah, I was just hooked that summer. Actually, that summer again, following around July, I booked a flight to Italy, to Saesi to race in the Italian Super Enduro. But unfortunately, 2 days before, I broke my elbow up in Northern Ireland doing one of the downhill tracks, and so I couldn't compete. But it was still a great experience. I still went over and got to see what an international enduro race looked like, the format. So that was that year. And then from then on, I got myself a van, bought myself a transporter, semi-converted it, kind of made it into a little race van, had a compartment in the back where I could fit 2 bikes in it. I had a bed pulled out, a little cooker, everything I needed basically to be a bit of a pikey and manage for 5 to 6 weeks in the French Alps. Pretty much as you can see in the picture there, we didn't stay in campsites. We stayed in race villages and then kind of moved around through, from starting in Morzine. We'd spend a week there riding, and then I'd follow the race circuit. So I would race a lot of the Enduro World Series, and then I did the Mega Avalanche 3 years in a row. And I also then did a few European Enduro Series. And yeah, it was just a lifestyle. It was something that not only did I love the competition and also the events, but it was also the lifestyle. I could go anywhere, let's say in the Alps, and I would find amazing trails. And it took me to places that I never would have even have gone. There'd be no reason for me to go there otherwise. So it's just, that experience just was part of the lifestyle that I loved as well. I'm talking the past here. I should be talking the present, but at the moment it feels like in the past.
Okay.
And then over to, we would have France, Italy, Slovenia was 2018, and Austria and different places like that. So a lot of ski resorts that turned into mountain bike.
You mentioned the Mega Avalanche there. I think you were
so the Mega
5th overall or something in that. Oh, sorry, you
so
Enduro World
just
Series.
a few photos there.
That's Carrick, is it?
Yeah, that's Carrick Mountain on the right there. So that was the 2017. So the Enduro World Series came to Ireland in 2016, and because it was so successful, they came back 17 and 18. Sorry, 15, 16, 17. So that was the 2016 one. I had, I'm just trying to mix up the years here, but one of the years I had a massive crash on the 5th stage, and I actually got a pneumothorax. So I didn't realize at the time that was probably why I couldn't really breathe. And it was a really, really hot weekend, but I felt, I've trained so hard for this, months of preparation. I couldn't give up, and you're on home turf as well. Bit of expectation, I guess,
No, there was. I think I was there as a spectator.
Were you? Yeah. Oh, I'll never forget it. As you can see in the photo there, it was just electric. It was unbelievable. Like the amount of people who came up that weekend was unbelievable. So great memories from that. So yeah, that was a tough weekend. Well, all 3 years were really, really tough, but that particular one, because I got this injury, stage 5. I said to myself, right, I'll just keep going to the next stage, just get there. But in the meantime, I had to see the medic, which cost me 8 minutes. By the time I got to stage 6, I was 4 minutes late for my start time. So I got a penalty of 4 minutes, which is pretty harsh for an injury. And then the final stage there then as well, I was another 4 minutes late. So an 8-minute time penalty put me bottom of the results page, which was a bit gutting because I'd trained so hard, I suppose, and I'd some good times as well, but that's the way it goes, I guess. So the following year, I got my best results. I got 11th overall. So I think I was 30 seconds off top 10. And
which is brilliant now for somebody who was a privateer. I know you said you had some sponsorship from bike shops, the guys in Galway and whatever, but to be a privateer it's a different animal when you're trying to do things like that. And then in the middle of that, I think you had a couple of great results in the Mega Avalanche, didn't you?
So yeah, the Mega Avalanche, I think that's my next slide. Oh no, I don't think I basically did that 3 years in a row so it was my 3rd year when I got my best results. I got 3rd in Masters Women. So I was up against Trek Gravity Girl. So she would have been a previous pro racer. And to podium at the Mega Avalanche was pretty, I was really happy. I didn't expect it at all,
We won't show the video, but I think it's really worth people, if you want to be inspired about, to my mind, a level of lunacy racing. It's not downhill racing, it's enduro stroke cross country, certainly the bottom section of it, but the top section, as you see there, starts on the ski slope, and it's another mass start thing, isn't it? It's
so you have your qualifying run the 2 days before, which is half an hour of intense downhill. You're racing against clock, obviously. But then the main race itself starts up at 2,600 meters in Pic Blanc. So it depends on, every year is kind of different. Some years it could be really hard pack, quite flat out fast. Other years, it could have been quite mushy. So it was just different all the time. And you'd be practicing all week. So you'd spend a week practicing the trails and so on. So that was usually about 50 minutes to an hour of descending. So once you get past the snow, you're into rocky terrain, quite steep stuff, and then you've got nice, amazing open mountain single track, drop down into woods. You've got pretty much every type of terrain that you could wish for. I mean, I looked at the Mega Avalanche thinking there's no way I would ever do that. But it's funny, when you get to do something, you realize, oh my God, well able. So it is a bit of a mindset as well, and things can be bigged up to seem like they're really, really difficult or really out of your reach. But there was I remember one year there was an elderly couple in their 70s doing it. Don't know if they got down without any
friends who people might know, Irish. Do you know Don Short and Ruth Lynham? They're based over Blessington.
I know Ruth, I think.
Yeah, and Ruth is well into her 60s, and she's done the Mega Avalanche. It's really it's savage to see that. She's a regular on the Rogaine sort of, and some of the shorter adventure races and stuff like that. So I think you make a good point there about some events, because people are trying to big up their event, they might put people off.
Yeah,
exactly. The likes of Padraig O'Connor that's there, he just jumped on to things like the Beast a couple of years ago. you know, people were desperate for teammates, and particularly girls. It happens if you lose a teammate and you need somebody. You know, we have lots of good examples of people picking up somebody late on to go on race teams and doing really well. I know Padraig mentioned I was looking for him to do the beast one year. He gave us a guy, Michael Flanagan. He'd never done an adventure race in his life, but he was brilliant. If you have the right attitude, and what you say is the can-do attitude, you arrive there, you get into the buzz, and you go for it.
Yeah, exactly. And just, I suppose, what do you go? You set your own goals. Are you there to just complete the race? Are you there to, you know, set a certain time, or are you there to get a certain position? So I guess you set your own goals according to your own goals, basically.
Mentally, before you hit go on the likes of the Mega Avalanche, or I suppose it's a little bit different then in the time stages of the Enduro World Series. But you know, is there anything in particular, you know, that you think is worth sharing about how to prepare yourself mentally for from zero to sort of balls out racing, if you'll excuse the expression?
So I suppose when you're racing, I suppose for me, when I'm in the race, so you know, the Irish races are 2-day races really, because the Saturday you're practicing all day, so you could be out for 4 or 5 hours, and then Sunday obviously is your race day. For the bigger races abroad, you could be 2 days practice, 2 days racing. So they're big days on the bike. And for the World Series, you know, you could be doing 50 kilometers each day, which Slovenia here, yeah, it was 50 kilometers, total climb, total descent. Now, obviously, you've got some that are lift assisted, but they're, you know, I found them quite, you know, grueling. Obviously, others are more difficult than others. But what worked for me was just kind of doing it stage by stage, getting through one stage and then, you know, refueling, and then just going, you know, taking my mind off and just literally sometimes pedal stroke by pedal stroke. The transitions were in the World Series are, you could be climbing a transition for 2 hours. So one race in L'Étoile in Italy, in the Aosta Valley, to get to one stage, it took us 2 hours to cycle there, and that's in July in the heat as well. So I suppose it's just, and the beauty of it as well is you're not on your own, you're with a group of women who, you know, you're pedaling along together. So there is that kind of team, there is a kind of a team element to it as well, of getting each other through it all. But there's a pressure of making it to the start line for your time. So yeah, I would have taken it really, you know, stage by stage, getting through each stage, and breaking it down into small chunks, really.
Okay.
So yeah, the Slovenia one, that was a big day, the Saturday. And then the reason I'm showing this one is because I reached my goal on that, which I didn't ever expect to do. So that was
2018 or something, wasn't it?
And you know what, that's probably the reason I did well in that one, is probably because I flew there, stayed in a nice chalet, ate well, and I wasn't being a pikey living in my van. So I kind of learned from that one that actually, if I want to do really, really well, I need to live
like a pro.
Exactly, because you know, living like a privateer, it was, you know, in the summer you're in charge of your food, your bike, getting it ready, your bike mechanics, your gear, you know, you have to wash your gear, dry it. There's so much preparation, the travel, everything. Like I literally have to do everything myself.
Okay, well, if there's any potential sponsors out there, Michelle is available. For
so, but it was brilliant. But it was, you know, it was tough. And then doing race reports as well, I found sometimes that was I suppose a little bit stressful, but you know, good to get them because you always have them then forevermore. So and then the friends. So yeah, I mean, that is the massive draw for me with mountain biking as well. The events, the amount of people I've met through mountain biking is just, you know, unbelievable. And you know, good friends across Europe mostly, who I can contact now, and you know, just it's really kind of made it a community, because I would have, I guess, missed that from the team sports, that kind of community spirit. And there's tons of women now getting into mountain biking. It's really, really growing, especially in Ireland. So it's great to see more women out biking, and yeah, that's what I love about it as well. I generally ride with guys though, but I've made a lot of friends.
I think the problem, Michelle, is that I know you've given me the option of going out with you, but hands up, I think you kick my ass and I wouldn't be able
God,
to.
not at all.
No, nobody
it's
knows.
Not about that.
No, as a general thing, like you've come quite late into mountain biking. I know there's a lot of girls out there, and they're doing and some of the one-day races because they're comfortable on the road and comfortable on road bikes, and they're saying no, like leave the ego. And it is sometimes you do maybe need a bit of ego to get on a mountain bike and tackle into an early trail. But on the likes of cross-country trails where most people can start off, have you any sort of advice for people that are finding it hard to maybe go for the off-road biking?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think, like, I was 32 when I started, so don't let age stop you is one thing anyway. But definitely, having a fitness coming into is going to help it. There'll be less suffering with it. But if you're keen to get into mountain biking and build up your skills, the key is consistency, is just getting out, finding people to go biking with. If you're living in Dublin or Wicklow, you've so many options of where you can go biking now. There's tons of trails. You got Balnastow, Ticknock, the Glencullen, the Gap now as well. And then, when I was living in Galway, we would have had Derora and Claren Bridge and some of these trails. So, but even where I'm living now, I'm finding random woods, and I'm thinking, I can see opportunities for mountain biking everywhere. So you don't necessarily have to always go to designated mountain bike routes. You could go to a nice little small woods and just practice some skills. Find little trails that you can go on yourself, and just building up your confidence really. And definitely riding with someone who is a little bit better than you, who can bring you on, does help. Like, I've always ridden with guys who are faster than me, that I'm constantly chasing them and trying to beat them. So it does
it's not
help.
competitive. No, well, I think there's a general thing there, and it's something that at ARI we're planning to try and do for members, is to organize some specific training days, because people, the bike skills, Padraig alluded to it about himself from the road biking scene, where his bike skills really helped on the likes of some of the one-day adventure races where they're throwing a bit of rough for a steep descent. Bike skills and bike confidence, I think too, isn't that
Oh, definitely. And I think like, I never had any proper coaching, but I suppose for me, I found the transition quite easy into mountain biking because I had such a strong background in sports, maybe, and obviously I was into the adventure racing as well. So I think anyone in adventure racing, they're going to have the fitness, but it's the skills. And if you can get coaching or access some sort of coaching, it's going to prevent you picking up injuries, and it's going to build your confidence, and obviously help to get rid of bad habits as well. So if you can access coaching, it's not easy to get it. There's not many coaches in Ireland, but if you can access it wherever you are, then definitely go for it. Otherwise, you can look at, there's lots of YouTube videos as well, if there's any specific area that you're struggling with, to get some tips on it as well. But I do a little bit of coaching, mostly through Cycling Ireland, and generally in the summer holidays usually. And for me, I would love to increase women and girls participation. I think catch them when they're young as well, girls, but also women who would like to try something different. And obviously adventure racers, they're going to have that mindset as well, and the fitness as well. So really good crossover.
Generally, to give it a go mentality, just need it.
Maybe and don't be daunted by it. Like, it's not like you have to start going downhill, big technical tracks. It's all about starting small, building it up, building your confidence, having fun. The main thing is having fun, and you will have fun mountain biking, because it's a great sport, So just not stressing about it. Just do nice trails that you're you feel good on. And if you can access some coaching, brilliant. Or find someone who has a little bit more experience and they're willing to bring you out and bring you on.
That's super. Just some question there. It's probably if Fiola is still with us on just a general thing relating to the longer adventure races. I know yourself and Padraig have just your experience has been in the shorter races, but it's talking about basically, nutrition and proper foods and whatever else to go with the long distance races and how to cope with sleep deprivation. I know we've had it on a previous webinar here that some people have reckoned that the best training is to have a young child that's griefs. But Fiola, you want to answer that question there on basically, I think it's proper food, is it?
Yeah. So
what have you found?
Yeah,
You would probably have been very hot on the nutrition end of things from your time as a
rowing. So yeah, because it really depends on like the intensity and the duration of the event, because your body like uses different systems for getting you like just to perform, and then it taps into different like sources of energy in your body. So the shorter the event, obviously you can just survive on gels and whatever you need, and maybe some cereal bars. So I would say from 0 to 4 hours, and then from 4 hours to 12 hours, I always found like I needed to eat something a bit more substantial. So I'd have bananas, or there was this little cake in Switzerland called Appenzellerli, and I used to love that stuff. It was like an almond kind of sweet almondy, very easy to digest. So I like to eat like fruitcakes and things like that. Quite sugary, but more substantial than gels and energy bars, really. But then from 12 hours on, like I really needed to eat like normal food and have a variety as well, because all the sugary stuff would just play havoc with your stomach. Also, even though at the shorter races and higher intensity races, blood is drawn away from your stomach, so food is difficult to digest. I find that even in the longer races as well, your body just starts to inflame because of the duration of the event and whatever is going on. So you really need to eat like gentle food like simple carbohydrates and complex, but that are easy to digest. So you wouldn't be eating meat and things like that, but it's I'd need to eat like some normal real food.
Spuds and pasta and sandwiches,
sweet
and
potatoes.
wraps, I think.
Yeah, sweet potatoes are amazing. They're low GI food. You can make loads of different things from them. Porridge is so versatile. You can make flapjacks, you can make bread, you can make all sorts of things from porridge, and they're also very like low GI and stuff. So I always went for like quite like low glycemic index foods, very basic. And variety was really important, because you get turned off things the longer the event. You just look at stuff that you'd normally eat and go, oh my God, I can't touch that. So yeah.
Okay. And I just also had a question there about sleep deprivation for 24 plus hours. I don't know, from my point of view, if you're interested enough in something, then you just
good teammates.
Just keep good teammates to keep you awake. Yeah.
But rubbish. If it's a solo event, I remember doing a few 24-hour like mountain bike races, and just going a bit crazy after 1 o'clock in the morning. And I started like, I just switch between listening to some music or podcasts and things like that. And I used to just like talk to people I met on the event as well at the same time. So yeah, it's tough. Like, but I always find like you come in and out of those feelings. Like, you feel like, oh my God, I'm so fucked. Like, I'm not going to be able to carry on. I'm so tired. But I think the really important thing is that you recognize that that's just a phase and it passes. You got to do what you can to get over that hump, whether it's taking a break or eating something sugary or finding someone to talk to. But you'll nearly always come out of it. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Padraig, have you anything to contribute in that? I know the likes of your Malin to Fairhead, Mizzen to Fairhead, or long distance stuff, and as regards to nutrition, what would you have found over the years?
Yeah, I suppose the shorter intense stuff, like a lot of the road races really is all over in 3 hours. And we would have been eating quite a bit of gels and sugary type drinks, glucose polymers and the likes. But the biggest thing I found is basically getting your electrolyte balance right. That was something that was, if you do a lot of sweating, and I, because I'm a big guy, I sweat a lot, and I suppose talking to sports scientists and the various tests that we did, a lot of athletes kind of leave that. They don't do a lot of work on their electrolyte balances. So I did a lot on that, and I found out I just seem to absolutely eat magnesium. If I didn't have magnesium-rich foods in my diet, I would know it. Sore legs, pain. Legs very, very tender, especially if you were doing multi-day events. That's what I found. So magnesium was a huge part. When I learned about magnesium, it really helped me a lot. And obviously the diet part, I'm very much a plain Joe. I like my bananas. I'd be eating bananas even in a road race. And if you look at the pro scene now, they're actually gone back to that type of stuff. They eat bananas. They eat the likes of the little almond cakes. They eat little bit kind of small little bread rolls with ham and cheese, plain ham, plain cheese, and they've gone back to simple stuff. And having a balance, like everyone thinks you shouldn't eat fats and all that. Fats are very important for the real long endurance events. Your body needs fats. It also needs fats for your circulatory system as regards your blood. Loads of omega oils. Like I drink cod liver oil out of the bottle every day. That's what I drink.
Okay.
I have on my salads. I have loads of extra virgin olive oil, and I take a lot of it. Take star oil, a lot of grapeseed oil, and that's really good for the health of your arteries and your veins, because they come under a lot of pressure. They're dilating and expanding probably more than they probably should, and that's an important. These would have been things I would have neglected back a while back, but now I take them very seriously. So I suppose they're things people don't hear about. You definitely don't see them on forums. You definitely don't see it on YouTube to take the likes of that stuff. But it is, if you want to have a healthy body and repair, like no matter what type of sport you do, you create inflammation. And the most important thing with your to get better from sport, you have to feed the body. You have to help the body to repair itself, and with that, you need proper nutrition. And like I don't want to go into a full-on diet nutrition, but it's a hugely. Everyone is extremely, completely individual. Yeah. Like gels never. It's not that they don't agree with me. I would prefer. I got no benefit off gels, but if there were caffeine, if there were isogels, it made no difference to me. I just did not get a bang. But if I come along and eat a nougat bar, I got something off it. Especially nougat bars with magnesium. I nearly got an instantaneously kick, and that doesn't make sense. But for me, it did. It worked for me.
Yeah, you mentioned that I was going to come back to the magnesium. What form would you take magnesium, and would you be in the preparation for a race? Would you up your magnesium intake? And as I said, what would you take magnesium supplements, or would you be like, I know, do you remember Jerry O'Sullivan? He used to swear by three days of tonic water, before a race to get the quinine in it.
Yeah. Well, tonic water would be more quinine. Yeah, that's to help with cramps. That seems to be a big part of adventure races, the cramps, and the quinine water is definitely a trick there. But really, magnesium actually helps a lot better with cramps. And it's simple stuff. Almond nuts. I chew a bag every day. That's what I eat. Okay. Very good for your digestive system as well. Keeps you very, very regular. So, and you have to remember, if you're very regular, you're actually getting toxins out of your body, but you're also helping the repair process. So, I do take some if I out on really warm days, I take magnesium powders. Just you get them in a good health food shop, and all they are is just I try and get them as like the synthetic magnesium, and then there's the magnesium that your body recognizes as food source. So I look for the food source type magnesiums.
Okay.
But again, eating foods rich in magnesium is the best way. Spinach. I eat a lot of spinach. Eat a lot of kale, and obviously eat a lot of almond nuts. I love almond nuts. So.
Okay. Great. We've just lost Fiola. I don't know if she's still listening. She's just left a message there. Baba is crying. So there you are. That's her sleep deprivation. Dealt with for the next few hours. She's going to be busy. Anyway, we're probably nearly at the stage of, I don't see anybody want any more questions in on the chat, or just want to unmute themselves if you have something in particular that you'd like to direct to Michelle or Padraig on this. It's just been a great informative evening. Is there anything, Michelle or Padraig, you want to add as regards, encouraging people to, Padraig, you've got a lot out of cycling over the years. You're still doing, I think, a bit of bike fitting. But I don't know. I think you were doing a little bit of coaching back a few years back. But what number one tip would you give people to basically improve their cycling, and maybe on what on the cycling you said you learned from the time you did the epic up and down Croagh-Patrick thing about the value of that for the adventure racing, whereas you had been trying to get by with no run training? Have you one or two little nuggets like that you want to share now that you got still racing?
Yeah, I suppose I've one very funny one. Like in today's age of internet coaching, and you have to be doing this, it's all about wattage and all the rest of it and heart rates. Well, back in the 90s, a famous coach once told me, he says, I can train you. He says, I can write that training program, he says, in the back of a matchbox. And I says, Christ, what kind of a training program is that? And he just simply said, miles, and more miles. That was the training program. And it kind of there's no two ways about it. Like I would expand on that in that, you have three energy systems, ATP, CP, you have lactate, and you have obviously your endurance system. And within that, there are various training sessions. And I suppose I was lucky enough to get, my horizons opened by a guy called Charlie Walsh at the UCI World Cycling Centre. And he started to show us how to train those energy systems correctly. And they just make such a difference. Like most guys will just go out on the bike and they'll just pedal. But if you really want to get good at time trialing, or you really want to get good at hill climbing, you kind of they're the disciplines you have to do. You have to do repeats. It can be a little bit boring, but you just pick a hill and you repeat the hill. If it's a time trial, you repeat a segment. And what we're doing at the moment to get people back on bikes and get them outside their 5K. Because you're allowed to stay now within the county, or if you live close to a county border, you can hop into another county by 20k, which where I live here, I'm more or less 20k from the border. And we have segments and we have routes, and we're just using Strava. Can you better various segments? And so each week, like I'm living in Westport now, and even though I'm involved in two clubs, Western Lake CC, which is Ballinrobe base, and then Covey Willard, which is Westport. And both clubs have created segments and routes that you have to go out, and they're a challenge every week. And it's as simple as that. Get out, complete the route, do the segment as fast as you can. And you can do that within, I know there's a few, we're setting up a few now for gravel biking and mountain biking. And it's the same thing. Go out and repeat them. See, can you better them? And if you can get out 2 or 3 days a week on the same routes, you're going to notice an improvement. And so over a period of a couple of weeks, you'll definitely notice a big improvement. But it's that simple, really that simple.
And I think maybe the other thing you sort of touched on it, because you're involved in the clubs, just getting out to cycle with people, and you've arranged to cycle. It's looking a bit dark. There's a few drops of rain. You look at the radar and you can see a shower or two coming in. It's far easier to say, it might be better tomorrow. But if you arrange to meet a couple of lads down at the crossroads in 10 minutes, get on your bike and go. It's what you do, isn't it? I think that's it.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And it's funny. It's funny how you mentioned. I see Rachel Nolan's on the scene here, but at the weekend, we're doing now kind of an Urfston challenge, challenge bid. We want to see, can we do an off-road Urfston? I would stop being done in the country, but what we've set little goals along the way. Like today, I did a bit of road biking, 2,000 meters of road climbs. That was done over nearly 130k, and that's kind of in preparation for Sunday, so that I'll have that in the bank. That the jump in from 2,000 meters to what we're doing on Sunday is 3,000 meters isn't as big, and hopefully I shouldn't be as wrecked. That's the idea. And like we'll set little segments. It's a bit like what we did on Pro Patrick, Joe.
Yeah,
We started off at 3 kilometers, then we moved it up to 6. And their training is the same way. Like you plot it out, just get a simple diary, road or handwritten diary. If week 1 you do 100 kilometers, and maybe that's broken out over say 3 or 4 sprints. Week 2 you try and go 120. Week 3 you try and go 170, and you build it that way. Then obviously take a recovery week. And I know that can be difficult if you're taking in an adventure race and you're trying to do a bit of kayaking and you're trying to do a bit of hill running, or you're trying to do a bit of flat road running. You have to take all of those into context, but look to build a discipline over a period and say, right, I've concentrated on cycling on this part and I'm quite happy how that is. And then the next time you look at road running, flat road running, look at your 5K times and say, right, well, what are they? And you try to increase your 1 kilometer splits. Kayaking, when I was training for Gale Force, I used to pick a 1 kilometer stretch and aim to do it as fast as I could. Come back, do a repeat, come back to a repeat, come back to a repeat, and that's the way I found. That's how it works. I used to say that's the methodology in cycling. Yeah. You get a route, pick it, get a time on it, come back and repeat it. Can you beat that time? Yeah. Try different things. Try different gearing systems. Try different positions of the bike, and that's the way it works. That's the way it works.
Super. Anyway, I'm conscious we're hitting on half 8 here. I see Rachel there. Rachel, have you any nuggets to offer from? I know you're after coming back from Spain all tanned after your warm winter training for however many months and lots of biking.
Yeah, I actually mixed up the times as well. I was like, I was an hour late.
Do you have anything just to add to what Padraig and Fiola and that were saying about nutrition? Just one or two little quick tips.
Yeah, I suppose I'd definitely agree a lot what said, like what Fiona said there about it being, really dependent on the duration and the intensity. I think that's really a key thing, and that's a big difference then with the, the 1 day events or the 3 hour events and the multi-day. I'm definitely a diesel engine, so those, as you called it earlier, balls out ones just don't suit me. And I suppose you can get away with gels with them, but for the longer events, I think you're more about gut health and sustainable energy. So like that would be one of the bigger things for me, and not just looking after your nutrition on the day, but looking after it, all the time, because you can't have a really poor diet and rock up to an event and eat well and expect a good outcome. And again, what Padraig said, I think the hydration is something that's not looked at probably enough, and getting the electrolytes right. And it's something that I actually worked on myself a lot last year. Just getting really the right amount of like magnesium and salts in with water. Because I think that's probably the issue there, as he was mentioning about cramps and upset stomachs and not enough energy. A lot of it is coming because people are dehydrated or drinking just water alone, and it's sitting around in their stomach, stirring everything without the salts.
And how would you identify? I know Padraig, you said specifically magnesium stroke salt seems to be an issue. There's magnesium, there's sodium, there's potassium. I'm ignorant on all this. So how did you identify that it was magnesium? You mentioned magnesium as well, Rachel. Have you come across this?
Well, for me, I tried a lot of them for the last couple of years, and what I find for me doesn't work is ones that are loaded with carbs, because for the longer event, sometimes I'm just thirsty. I don't need to load up on 200 calories of carbs as well. I'd rather eat them. So what I find works better for me, like for example, Tailwind, I bought a load of them because everyone was going on about them and just didn't suit me. Just too much carbs in them. And I found one called Scratch actually last year, which just seems to suit me. It's very little carbs and quite a high amount of salt in them. So I like Padraig, just when the sweat is pumping out of you and your skin is white, somehow you have to replace it.
Okay, super. Michelle, did you have any nutrition tips? Because you're a PE teacher as well. I don't know whether you've come across anything that you want words of wisdom for everyone.
Oh God, I'd say you guys are probably the adventure racing, but well, one thing that would always help me on a big spin, especially for a long race weekend, would just be the 4 to 1, 4 carbs to 1, because you could be out for 5-6 hours on the bike. And then I found eating during a race would be too heavy on my tummy. So I would just snack constantly on, I suppose, energy bars. Bananas are great. And then I'd always pop electrolyte into my 4-to-1 drink. And that made a massive difference as well. Just keeping topped up, keeping the glycogen levels topped up. And then, like what Rachel said as well, it's not about just that weekend or that race. It's about the week leading up to it. You know, being really smart with your eating, you know, and not eating too much rubbish. Just you know, I need to eat regular meals. You know, not skipping breakfast. And I guess everyone's a little bit different. But eating enough is key. Like if you don't eat enough, that's when you're gonna, I suppose, go for the wrong food choices. But yeah, you know, it's not all about the actual race itself. It's about consistently, you know, a week or two before, and not changing your diet at a race weekend, because your tummy wouldn't be used to it, you know. Yeah, for me, that's what would work. A good breakfast in the morning, porridge and raisins and berries would generally keep me going for about 2 hours on the bike, and then obviously topping up with drinks and so on. Yeah, that's pretty much what I did.
Okay, well,
so.
everybody better go off and get their dinners then. I had to leave half of mine behind. I'm not sure if that's part of any training plan, but then again, I'm not. I'm not a model training person, as anyone that's raced with me would say. Maybe that's where I'm going wrong. But listen, it's been brilliant. Michelle, Padraig, I know Fiola had to head off. Thank you very much, Rachel, for dropping in. Susan is there behind the Adventure Racing Ireland logo. So thank you very much, Susan, for helping out on the technical side. Thanks everyone for joining. We will be getting in touch with all the members with that Komoot voucher that Fiola has offered to all our members. So until our next webinar, which is on the first Wednesday in May. Good night, everybody. Good luck with the training. Fingers crossed we're back the middle of the summer, I think, with some adventure races. I think from what I hear, it'll be limited numbers events allowed in June. That's what I've heard through the grapevine, not official, but I hopefully that will have some sort of more substantial numbers then later on in the summer. So hopefully we'll catch up then. Okay, thanks everybody. We're gonna sign off with that, particularly Padraig, Michelle.
Thanks guys, great job.